Actress Diane Keaton has come out in support of Woody Allen following accusations that he had molested Mia Farrow's adopted daughter. Now, Dylan Farrow has been making these accusations for years now. She made the accusation at first when she was 7 years old, and she has maintained those accusations. Because of the Me Too movement, she decided to come forward and not only share the details again, but also call out the entertainment industry for refusing to take her allegations seriously, especially considering how long this issue has been around and how little consequences Woody Allen has faced as a result. Now, I'm gonna tell you what Diane Keaton had to say about it, and then there's this incredible video of Dylan Farrow speaking out about what she experienced or what she's alleging. Now, Diane Keaton talked about this on Twitter because that's where everybody shares everything these days. But here's what her tweet said. Woody Allen is my friend and I continue to believe him. It might be of interest to take a look at the 60-minute interview from 1992 and see what you think. So we are gonna watch a portion of that interview, but before we do so, for those of you who don't know what the accusations are against Woody Allen, I wanna go ahead and toss to the video of Dylan Farrow talking about what she experienced. Take a look.
I was taken to a small attic crawl space in my mother's country house in Connecticut by my father. He instructed me to lay down on my stomach and play with my brother's toy train that was set up. And he sat behind me in the doorway. And as I played with the toy train, I was sexually assaulted. As a 7-year-old, I would have said he touched my private parts.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Which I did say.
All right.
As a 32-year-old, he touched my labia and my vulva with his finger.
Where was your mother?
She went shopping that day.
And then after you told her, what happened?
She was upset. My first impulse was that I had done something wrong.
So this was something that was, of course, denied by Woody Allen, and there are so many different components of this story that make it seem murky. But upon researching it further, I've gotten even more clarity on it. And now, of course, he hasn't been convicted in a court of law. It's important to mention that. But the state attorney that was looking into possibly prosecuting Woody Allen at the time held a press conference that people don't talk about ever. And that press conference was interesting to me because of the fact that the prosecutor believed that there was probable cause, believed that there was enough evidence to prosecute Woody Allen, but ultimately decided that it would have been too traumatic to drag Dylan Farrow through that experience. And so Mia Farrow and the prosecutor decided not to press charges, even though he believed that there was enough evidence to do so.
Now, Woody Allen says the opposite, of course. He says that two different organizations had looked into it 25 years ago, the Child Sex Abuse Clinic of the Yale New Haven Hospital and the New York State Child Welfare Office, and that they had both cleared him. And I'm giving you important context at least about one of those. But there's one other thing that Woody Allen says that's important context. And you take it with a grain of salt, it's Woody Allen defending himself on these charges. He said Dylan's older brother, Moses, has said that he witnessed their mother doing exactly that, relentlessly coaching Dylan, trying to drum into her that her father was a dangerous sexual predator. Now, Woody Allen, of course, famously did engage in sexual activities with Soon Yi and wound up marrying her, and they're still together. So Anna, what was the situation with Soon Yi?
So she was actually adopted by Mia Farrow from South Korea. And we don't know what her age is for certain. And what I mean by that is they didn't know what her age was. They did certain bone tests to figure it out. And at the time that she was adopted, she was either 5 to 7 years old, okay? Now, from what we gather, the absolute youngest that Soon Yi could have been when she started her relationship with Woody Allen was about 17 years old, okay? But it seems as though she fit the age of consent, and that wasn't an issue. But there is a pattern there, right? Obviously, he was much older than her. He was very attracted to her when she was possibly as young as 17 years old. And so people look at that pattern of behavior and think, okay, well, that might say something. But there's also a bunch of different things that I feel like people are missing, and they're missing because it doesn't ever get talked about. So Vanity Fair did a really great piece where they summarize things that we know for sure. These are things that aren't speculative. These are things that we know for certain. And just quickly going back to that prosecutor, here's what the New York Times had reported. The state's attorney, by the way, this is a New York Times piece from 1992 as this case is unfolding. The state's attorney, Frank Mako, said he had drawn up an arrest warrant for Mr. Allen, but then decided not to pursue the case. He said the girl's mother, Mia Farrow, had agreed that dropping the charges was in her daughter's best interest. So like this notion that Mia Farrow's like coaching her and essentially utilizing her as a tool to go after Woody Allen, it just doesn't seem to fit.
Well, look, let me give the other side for a second. And I have no idea what happened, okay? So it was a terrible divorce proceedings. Number one, it's understandable. Now, Suni was not Woody Allen's daughter.
It was a custody battle, so yeah.
And there was a custody battle, et cetera. And so Mia Farrow despised Woody Allen, and for a lot of good reasons. One, some that we know, he did hook up with Suni and they did get married, which is insane. Suni was the adopted daughter of Mia Farrow.
Mia Farrow found naked photos of Suni in Woody Allen's home. And that's what tipped her off to the fact that there was an affair happening.
So you can understand perfectly why she'd be enraged on that alone, let alone if Woody Allen did what they claim about Dylan Farrow, then she has every right to go nuclear. Now, Woody Allen says, no, it was the messy divorce. That's why she went nuclear and drummed up these charges. Now, if she had done that, and I'm definitely not saying that she did, I have no freaking idea. You wouldn't go, then there would be a reason not to go through with the trial because you might get exposed. So it could cut either way. You don't want to put your child through that. She's 7 years old, it's going to be incredibly traumatic because it actually happened. Or you don't want to go through that because you might get exposed, and that's a terrible idea. And you just want to make the charges and then not back it up. I don't know.
So here is some more information that I found about the case. And again, these are things that never get talked about when it comes to Woody Allen and these allegations. So apparently Allen had been in therapy for alleged inappropriate behavior toward Dylan with a child psychologist before the abuse allegation was presented to the authorities or made public. Also, Allen refused to take a polygraph test. Take that for what it is. It might not mean anything, but he did refuse. Also, he had changed his story in regard to whether or not he had been in the attic, right? He said that he had not been in the attic, it's all made up. And then investigators found his hair there, and then he changed his story.
Yeah, that's pretty damaging.
So that's pretty damning, but there's more. So the investigation by the Yale New Haven Hospital is the investigation that he brings up time and time again. He makes it seem as though that is the most credible investigation, and the results indicated that Dylan Farrow was being coached. However, the judge that was essentially hearing this case did not believe the credibility of this investigation, said that there were issues with it, and essentially threw it out of court. Did not believe the validity of it. And by the way, the prosecutor that I had mentioned earlier also questioned the validity of it. And so there was another investigation done to see whether or not she had been coached. And that investigation found that no, she is not changing her story. She is consistent. There's no evidence to believe that she has been coached. And the judge ultimately came to that conclusion as well. Now look, I'm saying all this so you have the full scope of what's known in this story. With that said, we don't know without a shadow of a doubt that he had done it or didn't do it. We don't know. And neither does Diane Keaton, which is why I think that tweet was ill-advised. I get that she's his friend. I get that she wants to defend him. But what if he did do it? You don't know. And so putting that out there, I think, is a risky move.
Yeah, and we might never know. And look, there's one other piece of context that I've talked about on the show a couple of times that I know a decent number of therapists, and what they say is, it is shocking the number of times people make up charges like this in divorce proceedings. So if it wasn't for that, it's kind of I wouldn't say an open and shut case. That's way too strong. But some of that evidence looks pretty damning for Woody Allen. So knowing that context, I go, I don't know. But here's what I do know, okay? One, I'm with you. There's no way Diane Keaton knows either, right? Alec Baldwin with a vigorous defense of Woody Allen recently as well. And I get it that they're friends, and I get that they want to stick up for their friend, and that's laudable in some ways. But in a case that, at a minimum this close, probably better to cool it, especially if he did do it to a 7-year-old girl, which a lot of people think he did. Okay, now on the other hand, I'm tired of judging by osmosis. So some people said, oh, Meryl Streep must have known about Harvey Weinstein, she's guilty. Oh, for God's sake, right? And now Diane Keaton's guilty, Alec Baldwin's guilty, everybody's guilty. Look, they didn't do anything. You might think it's an ill-advised attempt to quote unquote stick up for their friends, but they didn't take any actual action. So there's a lot of judgment going on with very little facts.
There's a lot of guilt by association, so I get you on that. And also a lot of speculation in regard to whether or not people knew about what was going on. It's likely that most people didn't know. A lot of people didn't know. Some people maybe did know. We don't know. And that's the thing. Like, everyone is speculating everything. And we need to focus on what we know for sure, what the facts are, and make a judgment call based on that. Now, I want to toss to the next video because I promised that we would take a listen to a portion of that 60 Minutes interview with Woody Allen back in the early 1990s. Now, what you're gonna see is Dylan Farrow listening to it and reacting to it, and I thought it was compelling, and I wanted to share, so take a look.
I wanted to play a clip from 60 Minutes, an interview that he did at the time, where he was asked about that incident. Are you okay with looking at it? You okay?
Isn't it illogical that I'm going to, at the height of a very bitter, acrimonious custody fight, drive up to Connecticut, where nobody likes me in the house. I'm with a house full of enemies. I mean, Mia was so enraged at me, and she had gotten all the kids to be angry at me, that I'm going to drive up there and suddenly, on visitation, pick this moment in my life to become a child molester. It's just incredible. If I wanted to be a child molester, I had many opportunities in the past. I could have quietly made a custody settlement with Mia in some way and done it in the future. I mean, you know, it's so insane.
What do you say to that?
I'm really sorry.
Don't apologize. Don't apologize.
I thought I could handle it.
Are you crying because of what he said or seeing him? What is upsetting you?
He's lying, and he's been lying for so long.
Yeah, and by the way, Woody Allen says she at this point might, like, this is his version, okay, might actually believe it, that it happened to her. All this stuff happened when she was 7 years old, and if she was that coached, that kids wind up just thinking it actually did happen. Now, if from that reaction, whether it happened or not, she certainly, it seems like, thinks it did.
Right.
Because what's the point of acting like that? What's the point of any of this?
Yeah, what does she have to gain from it? Exactly.
Yeah. So overall, it doesn't look good for Woody Allen. But I will say, like, again, on a question that is a little murky, I wouldn't go on either side of this. I wouldn't go around saying Woody Allen's awesome and he's a great friend and I know for sure that he didn't do it, because I don't know how in the hell you would know that, right? And then I think the idea of going back to every person who's ever been in any Woody Allen movie and then judging them for the rest of history, I think it's a preposterous exercise. And to what degree do they know any of those facts? And so it's easy to judge now, but I think if you're gonna judge Woody Allen, that makes a lot of sense depending on where you come out on this. Judging anybody he's ever been associated with or that's ever appeared in a movie with him, I think goes too far. You just watched the video by the Young Turks, the home of the revolution. If you'd like to get the full show, come join us and become a member. tytnetwork.com/join.